robots are hot right now, right? Automation is hot right now. How is that changing the types of conversations you're having with customers?
If you look at the numbers, it was 34,000 robots sold in 2021 in the United States. I just looked at the numbers for April, unfilled manufacturing jobs in the United States right now. That's like 3 times higher than the number before the pandemic. So I don't really understand why we're not selling more robots than we are.
All right, you opened this door, so we'll bounce over to the other Greg here and ask that question. As a big user, as someone who's more and more invested in automation technologies, is the conversation around ROI changing, or is my question horribly flawed?
So I think there's a combination of responses to that answer. I think that the conversation around ROI is changing. I mean, obviously, at UPS, we're running a business, we're moving packages every day. So we need to have solutions that work in our buildings, that are reliable, that do the job. So if we invest in something that's 75%, 60% of the job, we've got to figure out how to deal with the balance of, or the exceptions related to what the robot would not be able to handle. So I think ROI is important. Functionality of the robot is important. And I do think that, where we are in terms of labor, everyone's looking at the same labor pool to leverage labor. Human capital is something that we need to think about going forward. So I think it's a blend of all those things for sure, but I think ROI is important, functionality is important, and then leveraging the people you have left to do the jobs that, that's going to be left over. I think that's something to think about as well.
Greg, tell us a little bit, just so this audience knows, about what you do at UPS.
So I'm the vice president, again, of the Global Advanced Technology Group, and I have 5 different pillars that I work on for UPS for our Global Smart Logistics Network. One of them is robotics and automation. So thinking about the future of work, what happens, we have situations like the pandemic, or we want to expand to other customers that we want to kind of think about how do we move packages to other customers. We're developing robots to meet that need inside of our warehouses and really out in the world so they can meet up with our customer needs.
And Melonee and Mike, I'm going to throw this question to both of you. All this excitement, all this pressure, all this energy, that creates its own set of struggles, though. Customers are demanding, we need it now. Mike, how do you meet that type of demand pressure?
Yeah, I think what Greg said is really profound in terms of what is happening in this logistics and distribution space, because it is fundamentally a brand new market for us. There's a lot of the key technology that's needed. I think robotic technology, robot arms and software, but there's a lot of new challenges and opportunities, I think, to solve some of the problems that Greg has in his space. So it's really exciting for us. There hasn't been an opportunity like this since the automotive industry really started to use robots, to see how many different opportunities we can scale to in this area. But it does present an entirely new set of challenges for us. So I think the opportunities are really endless, but it's going to take us working together and coming up with some new technology. And you're going to see that a lot around here. There's a lot of AI technologies, there's a lot of 3D vision technology, and a lot of ease of use technology that's in and around this show floor that's going to blend in well.
Melonee, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think what Mike was alluding to is that one of the big things about this exuberance that people have about, I want it now and I don't care how I get it, is that in many cases what we're fighting against is change management. And one of the big hurdles as part of that change management is that if they can't use it, if they can't deploy it, if they can't get it in quickly, then they can't see that ROI, they can't see and believe in the change, and then that change doesn't happen. And so we're investing as a community of providers in better tools for deployment, ease of use, rapid deployment, flexibility in our tools. The industry has changed a lot over the last 70-ish years. We went from you had to be a highly skilled individual that knew everything about programming PLCs and robot arms to I know how to program like Blockly or some language that children are using today to learn about programming as part of the methodology for in using these tools and deploying them. And we're much more focused on flexibility. You know, making a changeover 20 years ago even was very difficult in terms of getting this technology to do something different. And so all of that investment is starting to pay off in terms of enabling our customers to get through the change management hurdle.
Now, Deepu, Mike Cicco mentioned artificial intelligence and the role it is playing in this acceleration of implementation of automation. What are the big spaces where AI is really helping empower this next wave of manufacturing?
Yeah, so NVIDIA, we are a technology company delivering computing platforms for various industries. We work at the intersection of high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, and graphics. So artificial intelligence is basically automating automation, so which means it's being used in every industry. And of course, robotics is one of those industries where we think artificial intelligence and graphics, simulation come into the picture. And that's why we are here at Automate. And incidentally, going back, one of the earlier topic was, there's over 1,000 companies that are building robots, are simulating robots, are manufacturing robots, are using robots that are working with our technology, especially in the area of artificial intelligence and simulation.
I want to drag us back to the business conditions that we sort of opened with. There's all this tremendous good news around automation, but as I said, I drove by a gas station yesterday. Gas was over $5 here in Michigan. We're seeing, inflationary pressures. Milton mentioned the war in Europe. China still has a whole lot going on. Are we worried as automation professionals that this is going to slow this tremendous growth or provide a speed bump? Mike, I'm going to start with you there.
No, I don't think that whatever type of recession you might think that is coming or whatever you might feel is coming, I don't think. I agree with Greg Smith on this, that I think that we could be selling more robots. If we could deploy faster and if we had enough people in the industry that were doing it, I think we'd be selling more robots than we even are today. I do want to point out what Milton, the data that Milton showed, for those of you in the audience, there is a fundamental difference at the IFR when we talk about installations, because the A3 publishes sales. So the A3 just published that we're up 40%. That's on a sales basis. So there's a bunch of good news in there. So what Milton presented was installations. We have a huge backlog of sales that we've achieved that haven't been installed yet. So there's a sales and installations are two different pieces of data. So I think that we have our own supply chain. All of us have a supply chain that we're dealing with, and so we're all dealing with the same supply chain pressures that exist everywhere in the industry. So I think that there's a level of slowdown based off of that, whether it's logistics or just materials in general. But truthfully, I think the automation and robotics industry is going to continue to grow through whatever type of recession you think's coming.
Greg?
So I think Teradyne has a long history, 60 years in the semiconductor industry, and so we've seen a few cycles. We also saw that there's an underlying growth that exists in the industry and a sort of undeniable technology trend in that space. Moore's Law is going to drive things along. I think the same thing exists in automation, that we're going to see business cycles like any other business. There are going to be constraints on capital budgets if there's a recession. We may see that impact orders. It doesn't change the long-term trajectory of the industry, that we're going to continue to innovate, we're going to continue to sell robots, and our customers are going to face the same problems, but they're going to have day-to-day impacts that they need to deal with. So I think the only thing that I've taken away is don't freak out over economic news, that it goes through a cycle and things are going to continue to favor the long-term trend.
Yeah, I would also say that one of the things that's going to help us through this recession is new business models. We're seeing more and rapid adoption of RAS, Robot as a Service, and it's enabling more traditional CapEx-heavy businesses to be more flexible around the way that they're using their OpEx and their CapEx for engaging in these projects. And so I think that'll help us a lot as we push through the economic challenges. But I will say that the one thing that I believe will happen is innovation budgets will contract. And I think that is going to be one of the more challenging things as you look around Automate, there's a lot of innovation that's happening. And we most likely will spend the next 2 or 3 years ignoring some of that innovation because we're not investing the dollars that we need to in that space, just due to the way we do budgeting in corporate America and as part of our businesses.
You think that's risk averseness, so to speak, that people want to just not take a chance on something as much?
I don't think it's risk aversion. I think it's just P&L. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going through the P&L and you're like, what the hell am I going to take out? This innovation budget, that looks easy, and swipe it goes. So I don't think it's risk aversion. I think it's just the way we look at how we manage our costs and how we make sure that businesses survive through downturns.
When we put on a show like this, we think about the big users, but we also think about those users, those opportunities, right, Greg? And I've heard you talk about this, for automation in spaces, in smaller companies, in smaller operations. How do we make that happen? How does that become more and more of reality?
So the thing that we've stumbled on to more than purposely did over the past couple of years is focus more on the solution than the automation. What problem are you trying to solve for the person in the metal shop? Right. Or what problem are you trying to solve for somebody who owns a welding business? And develop the partnerships that you need so that mostly complete solutions can be offered to those kinds of customers instead of having them have to work with an integrator to develop a bespoke solution, because the economics are not going to work for that. So I think this sort of notion of 90% solutions available through a network of providers is a really important way to enable smaller customers to adopt automation in a way that's low enough support for the supplier and also high enough value for them.
In terms of small businesses, I think the word consultant is probably the most important one that we can use, because a lot of the small businesses, Deepu mentioned it, that the toolbox is enormous. And one of the key roles that we need to play is to be that consultative services, to walk into an end user and really talk to them and build a relationship and say, what are your pain points? And then what are the opportunities? What don't you even know yet? And I think that's probably the most important part of doing it is that consultative services. And then making sure that the robot's easy enough to use. So at this point, we're taking really complex things. I mean, 3D vision is a really complex process, but by using AI and by using some of the software that we have, it turns that process into something that can be used at a small shop. And I'm sure we'll touch on it later, but I think the education of the manufacturing workforce is something that's helping that out as well, where as we come into small shops, the people that work there have already touched industrial robots, where 10 years ago that wasn't the case. So I think being a consultative partner with those small companies, whether it be the robot company, the system integrator, the industrial component supplier, all those things, you really need to talk and start a conversation. And then, like Greg mentioned, kind of give them the tools that they need to then take it the rest of the way and be able to change it. So day one, they want to do process A. Day two, they want to do process B. They're able to flip over and do that things pretty easily.
Melonee, I know one of the things you prided yourself on at Fetch was the ability to easily install one of your robots. How easy did that process really become? And how easy do you think it's going to get in the future to deploy robotics and automation?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the usability angle and you look at what it means to deploy something, for relatively simple applications like go here, do this, go there, do that, All of that can be done in under an hour today with a mobile robot. Whether it's fetch or in many cases Mir has that capability out of the box. I mean, that level of automation is there, and that level of ease of use is there. I think that where we're now crossing the chasm, as it were, is in enabling more complex workflows to be done out of the box. And some of that has been done through partnerships. So one of the things that we've done, and it helps that we got acquired by Zebra, let's say, is that we went and made partnerships with other automation providers like Cicco to basically make it easy to turn on a piece of conveyor with a robot. Because that's kind of the bigger problem for mobile robots specifically, is connecting into all the other interconnected automation that we're dependent on. And the same is with Zebra. They make mobile computers, they make printers. Today, you can have a robot drive up to a station and cause a printer to print a label, right? Like, that 5 years ago, 10 years ago was like, really? Can we actually do that? But now it's something that comes out of the box as part of the software that we deliver to the customer. And those are the small things that make the difference in what Greg was saying around creating kind of this out-of-the-box solution that is 90%, that helps the customer envision how they get to this world in which they get something into pack out, and the labels are printed, they put it on, and then another robot comes auto-magically. Because our job as automation providers is to make the magic happen, and to make it all happen automatically.
We need T-shirts with that.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be Melonee Wise, magician, will be on her business card.
We're all magicians. I mean, it comes back to that. Sufficiently advanced technology looks like magic, right? And it is magic. I mean, when you think about it, like today, we spent the last year at Fetch/Zebra making it so that robots act more like people. That is magic. Like, for the last 50 years as roboticists, robots have been in this sole agent world where they don't care if you exist. Their job is greedily to do their job. But that actually is suboptimal in a world filled with other agents. You actually want them to be aware of the agents that are around them and behave as participant actors in an ecosystem of socially aware individuals. But robots are greedy and jerks. And we have to make them less greedy and less jerky to work in the environments in which we all want to see in the future.
We've talked a lot about manufacturing and industrial robots. I want to talk about the other industries and potentials that are there. We've seen a huge workforce crisis, not just in manufacturing, but in fast food, hotels. I don't know how your hotel has been this week, but mine has been a struggle. How do we get automation deployed into those spaces? I know, Greg Smith, this is sort of a topic near and dear to your heart, these job classifications where automation might be able to make a difference. This is a leap, though. It's going to take a little bit to get there. How does that begin to happen?
I have no idea. No, if you've watched like YouTube videos of robot arms stir-frying things, you have an instant appreciation for just how good humans are at doing that kind of stuff. I feel like the applications, one of the things about manufacturing and to a lesser extent logistics is even though we consider those to be hard and chaotic environments, they are massively controlled compared to trying to put automation into the wild. There may be entrepreneurs that are smart enough to figure out how to succeed in that space. I don't have sufficient confidence in the technology or our understanding of the problems to be able to go get it. So there's an opportunity for people other than us, as far as I'm concerned.
Melonee, you've been an entrepreneur. How do you solve this problem?
Public policy. I mean, I think the thing is if you look at the United States, we've underinvested in robotics research and robotics development for the last decade. In fact, we've done everything we can from a public policy perspective to strip those budgets. as in going so far as a senator went onto the floor of the Senate and said, this robot takes too long to fold towels, we should remove money from the budget for national robotics research because a robot took too long to fold a towel. If you look at other nations, specifically China, they are dumping billions of dollars into robotics research, robotics development. They have a 10-year plan, and we don't as a country. And I mean, this is a very North American-centric thing in some ways, but if you want to get us into these unstructured, highly chaotic environments, there's only two ways it's going to happen in my mind fundamentally. One is public policy by stimulating research, and two is through venture investment. The people who want to gamble on idiots like me and create value in the world, right? Like 7 years ago, AMRs really weren't a thing, right? And someone took a huge bet on me and my company, and now AMRs is a whole terminology. There's a standard. There's at least 30 companies at this show, all based on something 7 years ago literally didn't exist. In fact, I coined the term AMR. I mean, it didn't exist. So I think that if you look at how we create and generate value and create industry, we do it through investment. We do it through dollars and people putting in the work. I mean, it wasn't an easy 7 years, I can tell you that. But it was the best damn 7 years of my life.
Deepu, how does bringing a tech mentality to this problem, you know, the fail fast, innovate quickly approach, help automation move into the unstructured environments that Melonee mentions?
Yeah, I think, you know, in the end, the biggest investments are happening in AI, and I do agree with Melonee that the investment definitely can be higher. We are, of course, starting to see, I mean, I was reading the other day that all universities' classes in artificial intelligence pretty much are completely oversubscribed, and there's more students who wants to do computer science degrees and they're not able to do. Hopefully be able to fix that problem. But so that will solve the little bit longer term problem. But in the near term, we are seeing a lot of advancements using AI for automating different tasks. It originally started 7-8 years ago with computer vision. Computer vision for a lot of specific use cases is getting solved reasonably well. There's still some ways to go. But in the last 3 years, the biggest things have been coming down to conversational AI. Conversational AI is not just about speech recognition and text-to-speech, but it's actually the natural language understanding behind, which really, you know, the things that we're talking about, how do you program a robot? If there's a system integrator, in the future, hopefully the system integrator will just ask somebody a question, an AI a question, and somehow it goes into a huge database somewhere sitting in a big cloud, and the answer comes back and helps the system integrator or the solution integrator to go and, you know, program that PLC or do whatever they need to do. So I think that augmenting the human, augmenting the workforce with information, just like it's Google search at trillion times more scale with giving more useful information. So that's, I think, where AI is kind of heading, and that will go a long ways in solving some of these problems.
This is a question for Greg Brown. I'm curious what percentage of your robot fleet is currently dedicated or currently supplied by Robot as a Service, and where do you expect it to be in 5 years?
Well, I can only answer parts of that, but what I'll say is generally we are CapEx focused. We're open to OpEx deals. That's what I'll say. I mean, I think the business case has to match the application, and once we do that, we'll pick the right financial vehicle for the robot.
When we come back here a year from now, how do we think those trends are going to have affected all of your businesses, or of your customers' businesses? And Greg, I'm going to start with you to throw that hardball question in.
So inflation will be down. We will have a softening in the second half of this year that is not so bad. Things will come roaring back for automation. And I think we're all going to be in a really good mood when we come back.
That's what I like to hear. Melonee?
It depends on whether you agree with what the Fed is saying about depressing wages. I mean, the Fed came out last week and said that the problem is not inflation, it's wage inflation. And in order to get people back to work, we need to depress wages. And I think that will have a big impact on how the macroeconomics of the next 12 months will roll out. Because if we start depressing wages, I think it will, in the tech sector, have real impact and negative impact around our ability to innovate from a supplier perspective, not a customer perspective. And so I think that this is a little more complex than just how are we going to like stabilize our economy. It's also in many ways, how do we get people back to work? And there's no real agreement right now on how we do that. And that, I think, will be the big driving factor of how successful this industry is over the next 12 to 18 months, is whether we can get more people back to work and whether that's a good thing if we do.
Greg?
So what I'll say is I think that when you look at the current labor market, I think people are at home. They're used to that. And I think that's, in many ways, it's here to stay. I think the labor pool that we pull from is going to be challenging going forward because now people are doing the things that they want to do versus the job that they were doing. The pandemic offered them the ability to be at home, and they all woke up to, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to go in. And I think that as a result, we're going to have to really think about the future of work. We're going to have to invest in technology. And I think the good thing is, from a leadership standpoint within organizations, they're eager to invest because, one, they want to wow the customer, they want to meet the changing needs of the customer, and they want to be in a position to have the supply chain move forward in the event that something else happens, like a pandemic. And I think we're all going to be here talking about successes in terms of how we're pushing the technology forward because the world is different now and we need to adjust to that.
Deepu?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty bad at prediction, especially for the short term. But what we know is we invest for the long term. We kind of see where the trends are going towards automation and AI for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So from that standpoint, what happens in the near term is you might have to make some tactical shifts. But in general, we actually have one of the sayings in our company is if the market's not at least 10 years away, we are already too late to invest in it. So which means that we are thinking way long term than what's going to happen in the next 12 months.
Mike, wrap us up.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit talking about what Melonee said earlier about innovation budgets. I think that is going to be one of the challenges that everyone faces is if wage increases continue to happen, if costs continue to grow up with inflation, it depresses profits and you have to look to where you're going to spend your money. I think the flip side, the optimism part of that is going to be that there's a lot of opportunity out there in new markets. Having Greg up here in the warehousing and distribution space is one of them. So I think some of our innovation budgets are going to remain strong because of the potential of future business that we're going to see. So I think that we're going to invest more, maybe even if the bottom line and the books don't say to. And the other thing that I'll say is that we continue to see a strong participation from both private equity and venture capital in these markets. And so I think even if the government doesn't support us at the federal level, we are continuing to see that, and we're integrating that into our business at those levels. And so I think with the potential of new business that's out there, plus the influx of private equity and capital money into our business, I think our innovation budgets are going to continue to be strong. And I agree with everyone thinking that we're going to have a little bit of softness in the second half, and we're going to be here in, 10 months and be pretty happy.
May of next year, we'll be right back here.
Sounds good.
So I want to thank the International Federation of Robotics for helping us host this and for sharing their statistics at the top of this. But I really want to thank our great panel up here for spending so much time with us. Mike Cicco, President and CEO of FANUC America, Deepu Talla, VP and GM of Embedded Edge Computing at NVIDIA, Greg Brown, Vice President, Global Advanced Technology Group at UPS, Melonee Wise, Vice President, Robotics Automation at Zebra Technologies, and Magician, Greg Smith, President of Industrial Automation Group, Teradyne. Thank you. Please join me in thanking them for being here.